Welcome, everyone, to Dad's Got Dementia. This is our series we are doing on aging parents, and we're calling it Family Chatter, simply because we are just having some conversations and we are having real conversations with real people about real situations. So today I am excited to have our guest, Cynthia Brame. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you.
And just a little bit about Cynthia. I had to have my cue card because Cynthia has a lot going on. So she has, first, she's a wife and a mother of two teenagers, well, a preteen, I believe, and one teenager. But Cynthia has been a financial and wealth advisor and educator for the past 30 years. Now, I know she does not look like she even has 30 years behind her, but she does. She has written for numerous global publications on financial topics, which is great. And you've owned quite a few businesses. And you are now splitting your time between homeschooling, caregiving, and also running your business or working with your passion, which is finance. So welcome again. We are excited that you are with us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Shelley. Thank you so much for the invitation. And it's always a blessing to be able to share information that may be helpful to someone else. So I'm just grateful to be here with you.
Great, great. Now, like I said, we're going to have real conversations because as I vlog for Dad's Got Dementia, I have to tell everything. I can't make it sound so perfect because it's not all the time. We manage through, we make it work, but it's just not going to always be perfect. So we're going to try to share with our viewers what's happening with you and how you have navigated. So I'm just a naturally inquisitive person. And I enjoy, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I enjoy hearing, everybody's story because everyone has a story to tell with how they ended up where they ended up, especially in life. So it can be very inspiring, which is great, but it's also educational. So that's kind of two pieces we want to keep in mind as as I go through this inquisitive stage with you today. So I know your mother has lived with you for about 2.5 years. Can you tell us how that came to be?
Yes, I sure can. So I live in Maryland. My family, my husband, children, and my mother lived in Nebraska, which was not close.
Right.
So we got a call one day, and it seemed that she was dealing with kind of a medical crisis. And
what kind of medical crisis?
Well, there's several things. She was doing very well. She was at this time almost 80. Was she 85? Yeah, she was just about 85. And she just hit a wall in a sense. She'd been completely healthy her entire life.
Right.
And all of these things started happening at once. And so the call went from, I went to a doctor. They weren't quite sure what's going on, running some tests, and I'm trying to figure out that. And then I went to a different kind of doctor. She was having some issues with her eyes and her vision. And then another kind of issue happening with a different doctor. And
so wait a minute. Now she's in her 80s.
Yes.
And she was she scheduling her own doctor's appointment?
Oh yeah.
Driving?
Driving. She had a brand new car, literally had a brand new car, was enjoying life. Her health was great as far as we knew. She was completely independent. Let me tell you, she was so active. We could hardly find her. Literally, we'd call, where are you? And she would do prison ministries. She did that every week. She was at different facilities.
Right.
She volunteered giving out food and a distribution center. They their church sponsored in their community. And every Sunday she was there for hours. And she still would decorate for weddings,
so she was high energy
parties.
at 80 plus. She
Yes.
was high energy. Okay.
Very she's a master decorator. Yeah. But see, Mom had been a nurse. She'd been a RN for 50 years. She literally was practicing as a nurse for 50 years in different capacities. So we never really were overly concerned about her managing, because one of her areas of expertise when she got her master's was in gerontology. So she understood the process of aging. She understood, I think, her limitations pretty well. She knew what kinds of things to look for. And as a medical professional, she knew what kind of questions she needed to be asking her medical providers. You know what I'm saying?
So she had all of that, but did you, I mean, did your family know, look for this, watch out for that?
I don't think we were overly concerned, because Mom has always been one to she's got it. You know what I mean? She has things under control. We were always concerned about her physical safety. Like, is she out after dark? Is she out in the mall or in the grocery store? Maybe she should be at home. And she's in Nebraska, where weather isn't always good. They get snow, they get ice, and none of us were living there. So we were really concerned about more of her physical well-being in terms of safety more than her health, because she'd never demonstrated any lack of capacity mentally. She'd always been quite sharp. And even to this day, she's very sharp. You know, she runs circles around us mentally some days, but we weren't that concerned about her health until we started, getting these calls where,
there is, you mentioned that you just never really thought about that because she had it all together. I think a lot of us are like that, where we don't know when to make that shift from where are you guys at? What are you doing to how are you feeling? What did you eat last? Those types of things. It seems like from a lot of people that I talk to, they're kind of thrown into that shift of concern. And it sounds like her medical situation caused that for you.
Right. And we were concerned about her being so far away. I must add that. Right.
Okay.
We talk to her pretty much every day.
Okay.
And she has her village, even though we as a family weren't there. She had a really tight village, tightly knit village, and they looked out for each other. And some of these friends would run her to medical appointments, hey, or they'd pick her up from the airport or take her to the airport. She had a very ironclad village, which these are people we had, very close ties with, and we could call them, where's Mom? What's going on? Are you with her?
Right.
That kind of thing. So, we were very confident, but with these calls that we're getting about the multiple doctor appointments, then we began to know that, okay, something's awry, and we've got to maybe investigate a little bit more. And so my brother was the first child designee to literally just get on a plane. Okay, I'm going, let's look. Okay. And then we set it up where my sister was going to fly out, because they were living on the West Coast. My brother still lives on the West Coast. And just kind of check things out and go to doctor's appointments and that sort of thing, just to figure out where things stood. And the more we talked about it, the more I said, I think I need you guys to put her on a plane and send her here. And I got the wheels in motion, because I have a pretty good circle of medical professionals here who I could just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, my mom, I'm bringing her here. This is what's going on. Can you give me some guidance as to, where we can take her? And that sort of thing.
You brought her or had them ship her.
They physically put her on the plane.
Did you, from there, I guess you set up doctor's appointments to get just a general?
Before she landed, I had everything in place. Every one of the medical appointments, I had all the referrals I needed. I got all of her insurance information from my siblings who, sent everything in advance. And then I requested medical records to be sent electronically and all of that. And I dispersed that as necessary to the providers who were going to be working with her. And so by the time she got here, everything was in place with all of the specialists she needed to see. And it was just a matter of us kind of checking to make sure the information she was receiving in Nebraska was correct. Their assessments were correct.
So I know that when my father, and if for those that follow me on Facebook under Dad's Got Dementia, my father, when he was diagnosed and we had to literally take over just as you were doing, he had, his cognition was not quite there. And so he went along peacefully with every decision that we made because we had to. But your mother, she's not struggling mentally. So how did she handle you all making decisions for her? Because you really, literally, it sounds like you upped and just moved her, or maybe you, told her come visit for a while, knowing she wasn't going to go back. How did she take, you guys taking over her life?
Wow, that's a really good question. Well, my mom would spend long periods of time here. I'm the youngest of the children. I'm the one who had young children. And so she would spend months at a time here. And so it wasn't anything unusual. She had her room, her space, some of her clothes are here. So it's no big thing for Mom to get on a plane and come here, just like it was no big thing.
Did she think that that's what she was doing?
Well,
just
no.
Coming and
she knew that she was coming to get additional opinions, right?
Okay.
And, that's kind of the orientation. Most medical professionals know that you don't just get one doctor's opinion on something. Right. You want to get multiple, if you can, just to make sure that there's clarity on what's going on. So that's really what our thought was. Okay, let's go and get some more opinions. We got the best doctors in the world here. We got the best hospitals in the world. If you got to go anywhere, you're going to come to the DC metro area. So it made perfect sense to her. She didn't resist at all. She, got her stuff packed up. And I believe it was my sister at this point, put her on the plane. And we received her here and we hit the ground running with all of the medical appointments. And
so you say she packed up her things, but did she pack up her house or did she pack a bag and plan to stay just for a month or two?
She packed up a few summer clothes. So she came to us. It was early August. It was hot. So pretty much all she had was a suitcase with some summer clothes and toiletries, and medical papers, some.
Sounds like you all did the okey doke. You did the okey doke on her.
Well, no, we just didn't know what we were working with. So we just figured you don't want to play around. They thought she had cancer. Of course, that's not something you want to sit on your hands with. You want to, get to the bottom of it. And, so we were just moving swiftly to try to figure everything out and figure out a plan of action.
So I know that once you got her here and you've gone through all of those testings and, all of that takes time. So she ended up staying here. At what point did you decide, we have to take care of her home base? We need to figure out what to do with her home. And I know that you mentioned before that like 4 different generations grew up in the house that she lived in. So, did you discuss that with her and what needed to happen? When did you make that decision and how did you bring it all together?
We basically put the house on ice because our primary concern was Mom's well-being. The care, her getting the care that she needed immediately. Right. So pretty much everything else in terms of my family here in Maryland, our lives just pretty much went into a totally different mode. And it was just, let's figure out what's going on with Mom, get some clear diagnoses on all the different things that were happening at the same time. And then, I took over her business in terms of, the finances and that sort of thing. And the house, it will still be there. That is a secondary concern. And we just pay the bills and just keep it moving. So that was it. So we really, we went to check on the house. We'd flown back out to Nebraska a few months later, not necessarily to check on the house, but it was like November at this point, or late October. The seasons were changing. I said, hey, why don't we swap out your clothes? And then we're going over to Colorado to get some special medical care, holistic and some other things that we felt were going to be helpful in her treatment. So as we went to Nebraska, we literally, flew there and swapped out her clothes, got winter stuff, and and then went to Colorado for a period. Came back to Nebraska. Her car was literally still in the garage.
Oh my!
Yeah. So what I wound up doing was my son flew in, and he flew home with my mother. And I'm sorry, my son flew in. We put my mom on the plane back to Maryland, and my husband received her, and my son and I drove back to Maryland in her car because her car was just kind of sitting, and it would have been dead. So
right.
So we brought our car back here. So that's essentially that's it.
But you did. I know on Facebook, because I saw you on Facebook, and I think there was like a big moving truck or something like that. So at some point you said, okay, we got to shut this thing down in Nebraska and just maintain here where she is. So I was feeling a little sorry for you when I saw, all that you guys were doing. Yeah. But you did have to make that decision.
We did. It was 2 years in, but last year we spent about 9 weeks in Nebraska, paring down. My brother came and spent a little bit of the time with us and helped with purging, packing, all of the throwaway, giveaway repairs to the house. We were about to put it on the market. Once we
was your mom involved in any of, keep this, get rid of that, or did you just have to do it?
Some of it. We didn't want to overwhelm her because it's a lot of house and it was a lot of stuff and that needed to be done. And it was literally all hands on deck. So we literally moved our household there. All of our family went there. My brother came for, I think, a couple of weeks. He was there, and we stayed for 9 weeks. We stayed for 9 weeks. We pretty much spent the entire summer there, making repairs. We had a few of our friends that lived there that came over that assisted, and that was a godsend. And then we said, okay, we're going to put it on the market. We did wind up getting it sold. Went back to Nebraska a few weeks ago to close on the house. And the movers, physically finished packing what we didn't pack and loaded up the truck and brought it here. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a massive moving van in front of our house. And
what fun! You're glad it's over. You're glad it's over. I know
it's not over. It's not over. We finished phase 2 of a 4-phase transition. Phase transition. 4-phase. Phase 2 is done.
This 4 phase, is this over 2.5 years? Or was this just that last part of now we're going to just totally relocate her, those 4 phases?
Well, we are only done with phase 2. So phase 1 was taking care of the house and getting it packed and purged and all of that. Phase 2 was physically moving it here. Phase and also selling the house. That was a part of phase 2. So packing up the house and selling it and all of that was this part of the same phase. Phase 3 is us preparing to sell our family home, and phase 4 will be purchasing a multi-generational home.
So you
that
are
will
planning.
Accommodate 3 generations.
You are planning, and as part of your background, I didn't go into all of that, but I think I read in your bio that you did some not just financial planning, but retirement type planning. So are you leading the charge on that because you do have that experience?
Well, yes. I did retirement planning for my parents 25 years ago, almost 30 years ago. So all of that was pretty much set. We even did long-term care planning for them, just like I do for my clients. So we had been really preparing for this day. I have actually some additional credentials as it relates to planning for seniors, financial planning for seniors, and long-term care, and managing finances and preparation for that.
Cynthia,
as well as
I
during
just
that
have
phase.
to say that a lot of us haven't even thought that far. You know, a lot of us are thinking about or planning retirement for ourselves. That's what we've been working on, you know, those investments and 401k and all of those things. But, you know, I always say that I never even thought about it. I never thought that my parents would get to a place where we need to think about what their future is going to look like. Where are they going to be? You know, what is needed? What do they want? It just didn't seem like that was something that would ever come, but it came quite unexpectedly, and it shouldn't have been. So I'm really excited when I hear how prepared you are, how prepared you were 25 years ago when you were just 2, you know.
Like that's right.
Yes, I'm glad. But you know, there are a couple of other things that I want to talk about, but one of them is because you're into planning, you've had multiple businesses that have helped you get to where you are, and especially take care of your mother or prepare them to be taken care of. But one of the ventures that just a quick little spotlight here on your business that you're currently working with, and I know it's nothing new for you, but it's certainly something new for me, and we have taken advantage of it. Can you just give us a little plug about what you're doing now that's, you know, I'm so intrigued about?
Absolutely. So we're pretty heavily invested in the CBD industry. That's hemp-derived cannabidiol, what we know as the good cousin. You got the naughty cousin and you got the good cousin. So we're doing more in the medicinal side, not the psychoactive recreational side, if we can just use that terminology. And those of us of a certain age, we understand what that means. But as I mentioned before, I've always been very much into looking forward-looking or forward-thinking, trying to be progressive in terms of anticipating what would be some of the issues that are ahead. And because I have had for many years such a large clientele of seniors or people who are approaching that phase in life, I've always been concerned about the health and well-being of my clients. And we didn't just talk about, hey, what's in your 401k or what's in your stock portfolio, or, you know, do you have your risk management, your estate planning, all of these other things in place. We talked about, you know, what is your health and what does your health look like? What does your longevity look like based on family history? We have these kind of conversations. What are the kinds of medical conditions that are in your family? What would be your likely future in terms of just overall mobility, cognition, all of those kinds of things. We've had for 20 some, approaching 30 years, these conversations with clients. Some of these clients I still have almost 30 years later, and they're in their 80s and 90s. Some of them I've had them to even reach 100, and we're well prepared for whatever occurs. And I always say, you know what, it's best to pray for the best, but prepare for the worst. We always pray for the best, but you know, plan for the worst.
You introduced me to the tincture that has really, really helped my father. And surprisingly enough, you know, I consulted with his medical team to say, you know, look, do you think this would be a problem? Because he can get really jumpy sometimes, you know, just jittery, jumpy. And I was so surprised when they say, Well, his nurse actually said, yes, I use it. My seniors use it. My senior patients use it. And so we started, I talked to you about it and I wanted to make sure everything was reputable. And we started giving it to my father. And it is just amazing how it's just calming for him. And as a matter of fact, I just told you he ran out. And so I'm waiting for my shipment to come in. Where's it at? Where's it at? Because it keeps him from being anxious. And he needs it at this age. He needs anything that, is comfortable, making him comfortable. So I really like how you have continued to look at ways that can help enhance a senior's, that side of the journey for a senior. So I really appreciate that. But before I go on I have two other questions, but I think we have some questions in the chat from Darian, who says, my grandmother is 94 years old, but still has a mind and independence of a 74-year-old. Sounds like your mother. It makes her stubborn and resistance to preventative measures we want to take, such as selling her house with a ton of murderous stairs and moving into a single level home. She's terrified of assisted living, and I'll just plug it again. I'm not for assisted living. I'm not for that environment. However, I do not knock anybody who has to take that route. Yeah. Some people are not in a situation where they can care for their folks at home. They just are not. And it is not easy. But I just encourage, if you can take care of your people at home, do it. Absolutely. But anyway, he says, do we have to wait until she declines to a mental point that she can't resist the decisions we want and need to make for her well-being?
Wow, that is a really great question. And I sympathize completely with your dilemma because my mom is, fiercely independent. She may have resisted otherwise, except for she knows we've had these conversations through the years. And we have had planning sessions where it's not Cynthia trying to take over mom's stuff, but what would you want to happen if such and such happened to you, right?
But Cynthia, a lot of us again we weren't as smart, and so we don't know what our people would have wanted. We have waited till now, and I'm speaking for myself. We have waited till now when the situation in crisis is like we're in the throes of it to try to figure out, what would he want? What would they want? What should we do? Right. So, that's a challenge again for all of us. And it sounds like Darian is also in that situation. And do you think that it's he should take action now, even though she still has some clarity?
Absolutely. One of the challenges, especially when you're talking about medical decisions, a lot of times you need to have power of attorney in advance.
Right.
You need to have advanced medical directives. So the questions really should come about along the lines of, let's just say you have some sort of medical crisis. What would you want us to do? Right. How would you want us to handle your business? What kind of decisions would you want us to make? I actually have a document that I ask all of my clients to complete. And it's a very comprehensive document, but it takes everyone through all of these nuances, all of these different areas where we wouldn't naturally be inclined to inquire or have conversation. Right. But this allows us to be able to move through the various types of questions that we should be asking our loved ones. And we shouldn't wait till they're of advanced age. These are questions that even some of us who are middle-aged should be asking of our loved ones, whether it's our spouses or our siblings, because anything can happen at any time. And estate planning is a very important element where in many cases it's not handled in advance. And if something were to happen and a person becomes incapacitated, or they don't have the wherewithal to make decisions. They're not of sound mind. There has to be some sort of planning in advance of that, because then they're not legally able to execute any of these kinds of documents, whether it's a will or trust.
So can you share with us, we could load it later, but just a couple of questions that we need to be asking, our people before they reach a place where they can't make those decisions?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll post that later for the viewers that we have now and those that are going to view after the fact. So that is great. I think we have another question here. Who's going to live in this 3-generational home?
Oh, it will be my mom and possibly my mother-in-law, who's 2 years older than my mother. If she so chooses, we want to make sure the home can accommodate our parents comfortably. Our fathers are both deceased. So, we wouldn't necessarily have to plan for them. But also, my husband and I, we're the 2nd generation, and our children are the 3rd generation. And if we're lucky enough to get a puppy like you have, we lost our dog, so we'd like to get a fur baby in there too.
Oh yeah, you gotta have room for the fur baby. Yes. Well, that is really good. Now there's 2 other questions. We'll make it fast for everybody. But you mentioned that you still have your kids and you're homeschooling them.
Yes.
You have your mother, you're a caregiver for her. That's what they call that sandwich generation, where you're still young enough where you're taking care of kids, but yet then you have an elder who needs your care as well. So for all of those in that situation, how do you juggle that? Because I know that you have a lot of business interests. I mean, you're still young, so you're still going after things. And I do understand you're, partially retired because of great business choices that you've made, but you still have things you're interested in doing. So how are you managing all of that?
Well, that's a great question, Shelley. Very prayerfully. Very prayerfully. I definitely have to start there. There's a text that says, if any man asks for wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally. I'm really grateful for that liberally part, because I need wisdom and more wisdom and more wisdom.
Right.
But boy, it does require a lot of planning.
Right.
It requires a lot of planning. And a part of that planning has to be our own self-care. Part of that planning has to include conversations that we need to have to make sure everybody's on the same page and that we're working cooperatively. Without that, it's a disaster. It's very stressful. But my children have always been a huge focus for my husband and I. We had children quite late. We were married for many years before we started our family. So we're probably older than most of, I can't say that, probably half of my kids' peers are our age, or at least my age. And so it is a challenge. It is a challenge, I tell you. You can't ever totally rest, because your mind is working, and there's a constant juggling act, because we have homeschooled now for 7 years. I went into semi-retirement 7 years ago. So, we've been home with the kids, thank God, well before the pandemic. So by the time everybody else came home for homeschool, we were pretty much,
you were already there,
experts at it. Right. And we enjoy it, but, it has been a challenge to.
So it's definitely not easy trying to do it all. No, and I'm sure something suffers along the way, but I'm sure you prioritize.
We have to every day. You hit the word, hit the nail on the head with that word, prioritization. Every day is a different set of issues for mom. Maybe today she's not feeling so good and she's got to get most of my attention. tomorrow I might have a kid that hurt themselves, or a kid that has to prepare for a big test, or a sporting event. It's not so much sporting events right now, but last school year, when we didn't have a pandemic, we're juggling sports, and we're juggling music lessons, and we're juggling whatever else kids are doing. They're in Pathfinder Club, and they're doing all kinds of other interesting things. So it is a balancing act, but I cannot stress enough, it is important for you to have, and all of us to have, a spiritual grounding that helps to keep us sane. And that really is almost like having a secret weapon at our disposal.
I agree 100% that who knew how important that grounding was when we started this thing in this house with my siblings. Who knew? But it really has helped us get through this. It really has helped us like focus our attention, especially when things don't look like they're gonna work out.
Right.
And you know what? I can't even speak to those who don't have that type of foundation. It is never too late to get that connection, because it just really carries you through. I cannot stress that enough. And just learning so much along the way and growing spiritually because of it. So,
absolutely.
Get it if you don't have it, because it really, really helps. So our last little question here is, you've accomplished so much. You're caring for your mother, you're caring for your children, your husband. We didn't talk about him, but maybe next time we'll talk about him. And just
I put in a plug for him, Shelley. We cannot.
Okay, go ahead, plug him.
I put a post up on my Facebook page not long ago, just a few days ago, about my husband's the real MVP. People think I'm the MVP. He's the real MVP.
Okay.
He's the guy who left his home for 9 weeks and worked around the clock, repairing, replacing, packing, hauling things, dumping things, whatever we needed. He has been there every step of the way. If we're having to make a drive back to Nebraska or back here, he's either in the car making the drive, or he's booking our hotels along the way and servicing the cars. And he's up making mom's tea in the morning and her lemon water.
That's great.
And making sure she's taking her vitamins for the day and fixing breakfast. You know what I'm saying? Some days I just need a few extra moments of sleep, and he's out of the bed and he's like, I'm going to take care of mom. So what in the world would I do without him? I don't even want to know.
You know what? There are people out there who don't have what you have and are married. Praise the Lord. I am right with you with my husband, but there are people out there who don't have that support. And I want to do a segment on that. So whoever's listening to this, if you are in that situation where you really don't have that support, I want to hear from you. Because without that support, I mean, that's everything. You need it. If you have someone, pushing against, you're pushing and they're pulling, and you need to come together, and it's just not happening. I mean, it just makes it so much harder to deal with. So he gets the MVP award today. We're happy.
He gets the MVP award every day. I come in second place, I tell you. But the kids. Can I just speak on this too, Shelley?
Yes,
because
go ahead. Yeah.
When you talk about the sandwich generation, that is the balancing act that we have, but it's a balancing act of everybody. Everyone has to really play a role in order for it to work. So the kids, sometimes I've taught them through the years to cook. Some days mommy needs them to fix dinner, and they can hop to it. I'd say, I want this, this, and this. Can you fix this? Or can you figure it out? And they come up and they can fix a full meal that tastes delicious. And they step in, clean up the kitchen, or do whatever housework, or check in on Nana. Can you look in on Nana? I had to go to Nebraska to take care of the house. So there are things that I wasn't here to do, but they were doing it. And so all of us, as
it
my
is
grandmother
a
used to say,
family affair here.
it is. And it was that way for us. You mentioned the 4 generations. Now, 4 generations didn't grow up in that house because my parents built that house in 1986. My grandparents were aging, and, you know, of course, they moved in with our family back then. Well, they moved in before 86, actually. They came and lived with us, I think, in 1984 or something like that. But nevertheless, we were, and so we saw our parents take care of our grandparents.
So they set
and
a
it
good
was
example
kind
of the way that it
expected
should
thing.
be.
This is what we
Right.
do.
Right. And you're setting that example
Absolutely.
for your children to be able to take care of and
Absolutely.
support you and your husband, which is marvelous, marvelous. So my final question is, what 3 nuggets are you going to leave us with today? I'm going to ask every guest that I have that, because
Okay.
everyone has their unique situation. And yours was around moving and being a sandwich generation caregiver. So give us 3 nuggets that might help someone else today.
Well, I covered one earlier, and that is the prayerful planning.
Okay.
Prayerfully contemplating, trying to do everything that we can do to anticipate future needs. Because I think not enough attention is really given to that. And and whether you have a parent that's currently in a situation medically where they need support or not, it's always good for us to look forward, because, hey, if we all live long enough, we're going to need some sort of support. So, you know, just try to plan those 2 to 3 steps ahead, asking for divine wisdom. The second thing I would say is be sure to communicate with your village. Whether it's family, some of us don't have family that's nearby, but maybe you have some friends, maybe you have neighbors, you have people. If there's an ambulance that pulls up to my house, you better believe I've got at least 2 neighbors that are going to call me or text me, "You okay? You need anything?" Right? Pull in your village, because they can be very much instrumental in providing some of that support that you mentioned. Sometimes the people in the household aren't supportive, but maybe you can outsource certain activities that need to be done. Maybe you don't have everything you need to do all the housework, and you can outsource and have someone in. Maybe it's just once a month, come in and do a deep cleaning. Or if you have people in the household, do what I have to do, is delegate, because I can't do it all. I can't do it all. I'm running a business. I got the family, and I've got all kinds of other things that have to be done, and keeping all the balls in the air. It's impossible for us as human beings to do it all. And we just have to come to terms with that. The sooner, the better. And then third, I would say self-care. We have to be able to, at points, get respite. Or else you've heard about situations where caregivers, they pass away before the people they're caring for. That is not an unusual thing. That's actually a very common thing. So there's 60+ million of us who are in the same sandwich generation, and we're doing double duty, which is exhausting. So I would encourage respite. Get a break, even if it's just for a few hours, even if it's, you know, just, can somebody just pick up the slack while I sleep in this morning? Or while I go for a walk or something. But you have to be able to get away, recharge your batteries, refresh ourselves, and pamper. If you can get a massage in or something, do something to build your spirit, to kind of refresh our bodies and our minds, so that we can go that next leg of the journey. So those would be my 3.
Well, those were awesome. Our discussion was really, really great. I'm glad you joined us today just to share what you've been going through, what your family's gone through, and how you're managing it. It sounds like you got everything under control. I know it hasn't been easy, but it's definitely, you know, you put in the work. Your family put in the work.
Yes.
So we are glad that you shared with us today. So to our viewers, thank you so much for joining Family Chatter, where we have real conversations with real people about real situations. Share this post with your friends. We'd love to for others to hear and see this, and we'll be back next week. If you are interested in being in one of our broadcasts, just inbox me, send me a note, and we can talk about it. I'm happy to share your story. Everyone has a story to tell, whether it is a current situation or one that's coming. So we want to hear from you. So until next time, God bless.